Yeah, so why the book?
The book to give my younger self a voice, to give my inner child a process to heal from the things that I went through with all of the scrutiny and pressures on my life growing up as a child star. It was a time for me, a difficult time, and I wanted to bring light to the stories that...
I guess everyone's secrets are spilling in 2026. Brandy revealed in her memoir that she was just 16 when she began seeing Wanya Morris, who was significantly older. She claimed he never told the full truth about their relationship and said she felt manipulated, taken advantage of, and unable to fully understand what she was getting into at that age time.
Stopped it and said that she wasn't that young, because I don't want y'all to think Boys to Men was young. No.
I
was young too.
She said she was 15 and she had to keep it a secret because she was so young.
See, we did the thing. We did the thing when she was like 16, 17, around that time, you know.
So you were still a boy too.
I wasn't old. I wasn't like 38 years old, nothing like that. I was old enough to, she was old enough to get it.
Not Wanya Morris really out here saying Brandy Norwood was old enough at 16, and people laughing like that's normal. But it gets even messier. Wasn't it her own mother, Sonia Norwood, who introduced them and allowed that situation to unfold? Wanya himself admitted Sonia approved of their connection, which raises a serious question: who should be held accountable? As Brandy began sharing more details, people stopped staying quiet. Even Wendy Williams spoke out, saying her mother should not be getting a pass. According to growing public opinion, Sonia is now being viewed as a major factor in what Brandy experienced. Initially, both Brandy and Wanya claimed nothing happened until she turned 18, presenting a cleaner version of events. However, Brandy's memoir completely flips that narrative. She now says the relationship began in the 1990s when she was just 16, while Wanya was already in his early 20s. According to her account, he frequently called her, checked in, and positioned himself as a mentor, someone she could trust and rely on. He became a steady presence in her life, offering guidance and emotional support. But after she joined the group on tour, things quickly changed, and their bond grew more intense. What started as mentorship, she now describes as inappropriate. In her own words, she explains that he weaponized her admiration, turning friendship into dependence and respect into desire. She describes being pulled into something she couldn't fully control, like being caught in a wave far bigger than herself. She openly admitted, "I was in over my head," revealing just how overwhelming the situation became. Brandy also shared how sneaking around with Wanya became routine. She constantly lied to her parents to keep the relationship hidden. Her family was already against her dating, so telling the truth didn't feel like an option. It wasn't just about avoiding punishment, it was about not disappointing them. That emotional pressure made everything heavier and more complicated. Both Brandy and Wanya understood that if their relationship became public, it could spark a major scandal and potentially damage their careers. To avoid that, they stuck to a carefully crafted narrative, pretending nothing was happening and claiming they were waiting until she turned 18 before becoming serious. It was a story designed to protect their public image. In her memoir, Brandy dives deeper into the details, and some of them are hard to ignore. She recalls how Wanya would frequently bring up her age whenever they were together, almost as if it was always on his mind. That alone raises concerns because it suggests he was fully aware of the situation. At the time, she didn't understand why he did that, but looking back now, she sees it differently, and it raises serious questions about intent and awareness. She also revealed that she lost her virginity to him, despite originally wanting to wait until marriage. At the time, she believed it would strengthen their connection, but deep down, something didn't feel right. She describes feeling stuck, as if she didn't have full control over what was happening. The situation didn't end there either. She claims Wanya became critical of her, tried to control her actions, and was unfaithful at the same time. Imagine dealing with that kind of emotional pressure, control, and betrayal at just 16. It's a lot for anyone, let alone a teenager navigating fame and personal identity. Brandy has now made her stance clear, saying the shame and silence end with her. She rejects the idea that she was simply a young girl with a crush or someone who couldn't handle rejection. Instead, she emphasizes a critical point: he was an adult, and she was not. That statement alone shifts the narrative in a powerful way. While many people support Brandy for speaking out and reclaiming her story, others are still questioning the role her mother played. After all, Sonya introduced them and was managing her career at the time, even reaching out because Brandy admired him. Now, the conversation has expanded beyond just Brandy and Wanya. People are asking a broader question. How much responsibility falls on the adults who were supposed to protect her?
I want to tell the story. We like stuff like this, especially when people don't have any idea. Okay. Okay, so check this out. Brandy and I were friends in the beginning. Her mother and reached out to me, as well as my manager reached out to Brandy because Brandy was a big fan of mine. And I was like, wow, that's amazing, because this young lady was pretty cool. Now I was young at the time. I wasn't 30 nothing. You know what I'm saying?
And he thought that was amazing. According to Wanya Morris, Brandy Norwood quickly became his protege after they first met. He said he took her under his wing, introducing her to major A-list artists and placing her in rooms most people could only dream of. Because they were constantly around each other, their closeness grew quickly and they became very tight. Wanya further claimed their relationship turned personal only after she was old enough, insisting it happened with full support from Sonya Norwood, according to his version of events, which has been widely disputed by Brandy herself today narrative.
She and I were really, really close. Once she turned of age, we had been hanging around each other so much. We've been hanging around each other so much that there became to be some sort of connection, an intimate connection. We actually fell.
Of course, nobody was really buying what Wanya Morris was saying about the relationship only starting when Brandy Norwood was an adult. People who were around back then already felt the timeline didn't add up, and that version of events never really convinced the public. The skepticism only grew as more details surfaced over time, making the situation even more complicated and heavily debated online. As if that wasn't already messy, there were also claims that Wanya had an alleged affair with Odina Howard while still connected to Brandy. When things reportedly went wrong for Odina's career afterward, many felt Wanya didn't publicly support her, which only added more criticism to his name. These overlapping stories created a narrative that fans and observers still argue about today, especially when trying to separate fact from rumor. Even now, with Brandy stating her mother wasn't fully aware of everything, many people still question that version of events. Sonya Norwood remains a central figure in public debate, with some insisting she had to know more given her close role in managing Brandy's early career. Because of that involvement, people continue to argue that accountability shouldn't stop at the performers alone, especially in a situation involving a minor in the industry. The discussion becomes even more layered when looking at Brandy's later relationships and public image. One major point of confusion was her relationship with Robert Smith, where they presented themselves as married and even announced they were expecting a child in 2002 while she was still very young. However, in a later interview in 2004, Robert clarified that they were never legally married, revealing that the public narrative was not entirely accurate and raising further questions about image control. According to him, the idea of presenting themselves as married came from Brandy's mother as a way to protect Brandy's public image. This claim added another dimension to the ongoing debate about how much influence Sonya had over key decisions in Brandy's personal and professional life. It also fueled public discussion about whether those decisions, even if made with protective intent, had long-term emotional consequences. Brandy herself has also been open about her struggles with body image and health during her rise to fame. She spoke about periods where she felt extreme pressure to stay thin, admitting she engaged in unhealthy behaviors including not eating properly and relying on harmful methods to maintain weight. Her honesty shed light on the darker side of early fame and how intense expectations can affect a young artist's mental and physical health. She also reflected on how fame did not equal happiness. Even at the peak of her success, she described feeling emotionally overwhelmed and internally unstable. At one point, her weight dropped significantly, and she became fixated on constantly monitoring it. The contrast between public admiration and private suffering painted a deeply troubling picture of what she was experiencing behind the scenes. In a powerful moment shared in an interview with Oprah, Brandy explained how compliments about her appearance masked serious internal distress. While people praised how thin she looked, she described feeling emotionally chaotic and deeply unhappy underneath it all. That disconnect highlighted how external validation can sometimes hide serious personal struggles. Her situation became even more serious in 1999 when she was hospitalized after being found weak, disoriented, and severely dehydrated due to not eating properly. Although there is no direct evidence that her mother instructed her to engage in those behaviors, many believe the environment of pressure and perfection contributed heavily to her condition. It underscored just how extreme the demands of fame had become for her at such a young age. Over time, additional claims surfaced suggesting Sonya may have played a role in shaping certain professional conflicts. One example involves Countess Vaughn, where it was alleged that tensions were influenced by behind-the-scenes opinions about competition and career positioning. These reports suggest that decisions on set and off-screen dynamics may have been affected by external pressures. There were also rumors about growing competition between television projects like Moesha and the Parkers, which added further strain within the entertainment space. At the same time, Brandy's well-known friendship-turned-rivalry with Monica became another focal point in pop culture, especially after reports of tension during award show rehearsals in the late 1990s. Although both Brandy and Monica later downplayed those incidents, they eventually acknowledged in a 2012 interview that there was indeed tension between them at the time. Looking back, it showed how many of these early career moments carried more complexity than what was originally seen in public, reinforcing how layered and emotionally charged Brandy's early journey in the industry truly was.
Brandy are here.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
Monica
yes.
and Brandy.
The adult version.
Oh, the grown-up version.
Ooh, you know what I'm saying? We couldn't come in here in 98 and do this, so it's good that we can do it now.
Oh, no. Y'all was about to kill each other back then. I remember.
And then she would have blamed everything on me. Oh, I hate She would have been like, she attacked me. That's how she does me.
Like, let's keep it 100. She probably did, right? It was probably her.
I said I'm sorry.
Again, based on what people were saying at the time, a lot of that tension reportedly came from Sonya Norwood putting it in Brandy Norwood's head that she was better than Monica Arnold. That kind of mindset, whether true or not, can easily create division between young artists, especially when careers are developing side by side in the same space. There were also rumors involving Aaliyah. Early on, people claimed the tension was tied to image differences. Aaliyah Dana Horton had a more mature, edgy vibe, while Brandy's image was more clean-cut and teen-focused. Some accounts suggest Brandy allegedly made comments criticizing Aaliyah's style, saying it was too grown, and even implying her mother would not approve of that kind of image. It reportedly didn't stop there. Some people who were around at the time have claimed Brandy would occasionally speak negatively about both Aaliyah and Monica, especially in conversations about relationships with older men. According to those claims, she would describe them as being too grown for their age. This detail stands out because it's often contrasted with Brandy's own situation during her early relationship years, which people still debate heavily today. Now, when it comes to Sonya's influence, there are claims floating around that financial dynamics may have played a role in how much control she had. Some say Brandy was contributing financially to her household even at a young age, which allegedly shifted the balance of authority in certain decisions. Whether fully accurate or not, that theory is often used by observers to explain why boundaries in her personal and professional life may have been blurred. This is where discussions often turn toward media commentary and figures like Wendy Williams, who was known during her radio days for speaking openly about entertainment industry rumors. Some people argue that Wendy may have known more than she publicly said at the time, but chose not to directly confront certain stories involving Sonya due to her influence and reputation in the industry. Others believe it was less about fear and more about timing, access, and what could be proven publicly. Either way, the perception remains that industry insiders often knew more than what was openly discussed, but only certain parts of those stories ever reached the public in real time. Wendy has also historically expressed admiration for Brandy, often praising her talent while still addressing controversies when they surfaced. That mix of support and criticism has kept her name tied to discussions about Brandy's career over the years, especially when older rumors resurface and get reanalyzed in a modern context. At the center of it all is still Sonya Norwood, whose role continues to be debated. Some believe she was a protective mother trying to navigate an extremely competitive industry, while others argue she may have been too involved in shaping relationships, image decisions, and career direction at a very young and vulnerable stage of Brandy's life. As new claims and old interviews keep resurfacing, The story keeps shifting depending on who is speaking and when they're speaking. That's why the conversation remains so active today, with people constantly reevaluating past events through a more critical lens. So now the question becomes less about rumors and more about perspective. How much influence is too much when managing a child star in a high-pressure industry? And where does responsibility truly begin and end?